Hey everybody, it's Professor Malat with another weekly overview. This week we are in week 9 and we'll be focusing on evaluating sources. So now that we have started this research project and we're taking these little baby steps towards tackling the beast, I think that's what I referred to it last week. Um, we are now going to dive into why evaluating sources is so very important when you're doing research like this. Most of you are probably Gen X, Gen Z, maybe some millennials in the class, and you're all really, really good at locating information online very quickly, right? But it's also important to be able to critically analyze that information to make sure that the information that you're reading, the information that you're consuming, the media that you're consuming is legit, right? So, we're going to go through a few things this week to help you understand how you can go about evaluating sources and ensuring that the information that you're using for your research is on the up and up, that it's credible, that it's reliable. Remember, in the rhetorical analysis unit, we worked with those appeals. Ethos is one of those appeals, and ethos or credibility is really going to matter in this research project. You want to use credible sources, you want to use believable sources. But how do we do that? So I have some resources here this week that should help you to answer some of those questions that may be floating around in your mind, especially in the readings, but also in the videos. Um, I think the crash course videos that I have recommended are really, really good. Especially, there's a whole playlist for navigating digital information that John Green does. It is absolutely fantastic. So I recommend it if you have the time. I really think the crash course Who Can You Trust video is superb. So that would be a really good one if you didn't want to sit through a bunch of very short videos, with the exception of my lengthier library resources video. Um, if you had to choose one, I would say this one, Who Can You Trust, would be the one to watch. John Green makes a really fantastic case for making sure that you have credible information from the internet. Out of the readings, I would say, does your source pass what's called the CRAAP test? I'm actually going to read through this for you in this and explain a little bit more, although this handout is really quite good. So, in academic circles, especially in first year writing classes, we have what's called the CRAAP test, right? CRAAP. And this is kind of a heuristic or a rubric that you can use to help evaluate resources. And it stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Those are the 5 things, the 5 criteria that will help you to make sure that the information that you're consuming and evaluating is actually worthwhile, right? So, currency has to do with the timeliness of the information. When was it published? Um, has it been revised and updated? Does your topic require current information, or is your topic okay enough that you can use older sources as well? I like to think about, if you're writing about technology, you may not want to use information that was published in the early 80s, right? Because technology has boomed since the early 80s. Whereas if you have a topic where you're writing about Shakespeare or even maybe Aristotle's perceptions of happiness, if you're pulling that in, then of course, yes, older sources will work quite well because it's a less time focused topic, if that makes sense. Another thing to think of if you're looking online at things, are links functional? Sometimes links are not updated. They might not be going to the most current version of a particular website or web page. So that is something to consider as well. When we move to relevance, that is really how important that information is to your topic. So you want to think about things like, does it relate to your topic or answer your question? If you use something that isn't related to what you are actually researching and writing about, don't use it, right? Um, who is the intended audience? Of course, for our purposes, we want things that are intended for people who are probably high school age and up, right? Your contemporaries, high school age and up. You're not going to rely on a very simplistic book. Um, of course, again, it varies for your topic, but I would say chances are you want relevant information if it's intended for a more adult audience because that's who you are writing for. Is it at an appropriate level? It's not too elementary or it's not too advanced for your needs. And you also want to make sure you look at a variety of sources before figuring out which ones you want to use. Next, we go to authority. Who is the source of the information? So you want to think about author, publisher, source, sponsor. What are their credentials? So we're dealing with ethos here, right? What are their credentials? Who are they affiliated with? And is the author qualified to write on the topic? Other things that can help with authority is if there's contact information on that page somewhere, it could be an email address, phone numbers, that kind of thing, publisher address. Um, and does the URL reveal anything about the author or source? So look for endings that end in .com or .edu or .gov or .org or .net. Edu, gov, and org, of course, are a little bit more reliable. Anybody can have a .com or a .net, um, but you have to be a particular type of person to have those edu, .gov, and .org endings on the URLs. Another thing to look for is accuracy. So again, we're looking at reliability, truthfulness, correctness, that kind of stuff. So you want to see where that information is coming from. How is it being supported by evidence? Do they use research done by other people? Do they cite other people? Do they give other people credit? Or is it just simply opinion? Has the information been reviewed or refereed? If you are reading an academic or scholarly article, chances are pretty good that it's been reviewed by somebody other than just an editor, and it's been refereed probably by either a panel or a team of their peers, and it's gone through a whole lengthy process prior to being published in the journal. Um, can you verify any of the other information that you found in other sources or from your own personal knowledge? That is very, very important. Again, and that's kind of relating to logos, right? We have facts and figures, things that we can look up elsewhere, things that we can verify and say, yes, this is truthful, right? Does the language or tone seem unbiased and free of emotion? Are there spelling, grammar, and typographical errors? Of course, that is also kind of going to make something questionable if somebody uses poor grammar or doesn't bother to proofread and check prior to publishing things. And I know I've been guilty of not really or maybe hastily proofreading through something before publishing it in Canvas. Mea culpa. Um, but yeah, so that's another thing to look for with accuracy. And lastly, is purpose. Why does that information exist in the first place? What's the purpose? Is it to inform, teach, to sell something, to entertain, to persuade? Um, do they make their intentions or purpose clear? Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? Does the point of view appear objective and impartial? And is there any kind of political, ideological, cultural, and other kinds of biases in that writing? Of course, if you are writing something from a particular religious perspective, of course, with our topic of happiness, you could be writing from a religious perspective. Um, Keep in mind that maybe this person is writing for a particular purpose for a particular audience, right? And I know some of you have taken a look at some faith-based articles for your rhetorical analyses, which was perfectly fine. And again, if you have some kind of a religious or even cultural perspective that you want to bring into your research, by all means do that. But keep in mind that a particular piece might be swayed in a particular way, right, for a particular purpose. So we know these things. We've started to interact with text critically, and now we're going to be doing that more and more as we start to evaluate our evidence. So if you only do one reading, that does your source pass the CRAAP test? That would be the one to take a look at. Of course, the evaluating sources module from the University of Mississippi Ret Lab that goes further in depth and talks at great length about all of those things. Again, there is a page in that module that is also similar to this. Um, and then I have a page here for Google and Wikipedia for research. And this is taken from uh, a textbook that I used to use in this class. I no longer use it, even though it's a really fantastic textbook. I'm just trying to move away from very expensive texts because, heck, when you're taking 5 or 6 classes, textbooks, they can really add up. Um, so you've probably been told that you should not use Wikipedia for research, right? And yes and no. Wikipedia can be a fantastic jumping off point. And I think if you watch that second video by John Green that I've recommended in the Crash Course video series, he says something similarly about Wikipedia and Google, and how we can use those things as tools, not necessarily as sources, but as tools for our research. So, Wikipedia, yes, it can be edited by anybody, which is why we don't use it as a source, right? Anybody can edit a Wikipedia entry. However, sometimes they're very good. And the way you can discover whether or not it's something that's really good is to actually go down to the bottom of the page. If there is a humongous list of sources, it's a big bibliography fest at the bottom, those footnotes that you see throughout the articles. Um, if those sources seem sketchy or clearly biased, then of course you're not going to rely on that Wikipedia and it might be questionable. However, there can be a lot of good resources within that Wikipedia article. So you could do like a general topic search to see what people are saying about it, maybe get some ideas, but look at the sources. And if you see a lot of peer reviewed, scholarly, academic sources, then you can be pretty sure that the information that's in that article is reliable. But I would say go to some of those sources that the person has referenced, right? Check those sources out. See what the people say originally rather than somebody's idea about it, right? Then you can decide for yourself, go through with that CRAAP test criteria, decide for yourself whether or not that resource is a good resource. So I like using Wikipedia as kind of a jumping off point to understand a little bit about a topic that I might not understand much about, look at the resources, and then kind of pick and choose through some of those resources to read a little bit more. So it can be a good way to jumpstart your research if you aren't quite sure where you want to go. But don't use it as a source itself. If I see it in your works cited list, I'm going to tell you, no, you can't do that, right? Likewise, Google. We all know that has this algorithm stuff, just like YouTube, because they're the same company. But Google, you have to keep in mind that, people hardly ever go past the first 3 pages or so of search results. And those top search results are usually the ones who have the right SEO, search engine optimization keywords in their descriptions. They have paid money to appear up at top and get a better ranking. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So don't just look at the first page of Google and say, okay, these are all great, right? Because, well, maybe they're not all great. So Google as a search engine can be good. It can be a good starting point. But again, We have to be more discerning, right? There is, however, a website called Google Scholar. It is scholar.google.com, and that will take you to scholarly and academic articles. And frequently, if you are already signed in with your UC credentials into the system, you will see links, and I'll show you how you can do this. I'll do another video separately, how you can do this and see the links that will take you into the UC library. So you will have access to something that might otherwise be behind a subscription or a paywall of some sort. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about Google and Wikipedia. So make sure you take a look at the list of resources. You don't have to read them all. Um, the other thing, again, with the reading annotations, we are looking for our resources. We're continuing to do our research. So you should pick a new article, at least one article this week, if not two, or a new source this week, something that you will be using as research. I want to make this very important. You're not just doing a random reading annotation, it should be a resource that you intend to use for your paper or your project, right? Um, so we'll continue with the reading annotations this week, and then we will do a source evaluation for two sources. So if you had made notes in week 8, I think, yes, notes in week 8 for a source, you can use that as one of your sources to evaluate, and then whatever your new source that you're using for your reading annotation, you can use that as a second source for evaluation. But this is a worksheet. I recommend that you use Academic Search Complete. You don't have to. um, I don't the point here is to get you to evaluate your source. So you copy and paste this into either a text entry box or a Word document or Google Doc, and you will have the source title, who created it, when it was published or posted, and then the URL. Um, and then you will answer these questions and complete the worksheet. You will do this for each. So you're doing two sources, so you have to do this twice, right? Fill it out twice, one for each source that you are supposed to be reviewing. And that will be due on Sunday. So I think that's it. Make sure that you take a look at the library resources, because we will be using the library. I think I may have posted this a week early. And then we have a week off with spring break coming up, so that'll be fantastic as well. All right. So if you have any other questions, I know I kind of raced through this. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I do not mind your questions, even if you send them to me in the middle of the night. I'm not going to answer them then, but I will get to it the next morning. So take care, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Bye bye.